Eeveelutions are loved, right? Yes, they are very loved, but not for their competitive viability for the most part, at least as far as VGC is concerned. While some offer ideas to supplement or work with certain teams, for the most part, an Eeveelution's place on a team is not because it offers overall viability to the team itself, but because the team was built with the Eeveelution in mind. Case in point, Sylveon, the fairy Eeveelution, going off of Petalytics for switch pick percentage, sits at number 15, while the next Eeveelution, Vaporeon, sits sadly at number 74. Not all Eeveelutions are created equal, and while Sylveon is not necessarily any different to the others in terms of stats, its combination of typing, ability, and move pool sets it so far above the others that there is no reason to run any of the other Eeveelutions, unless you're specifically building a team for them.
Is there more to us than the words we say, the games we play? Can we know that we're not dreaming?
Now, before we begin, I just want to say there's nothing wrong with the Eeveelutions. They are all good in their own right. But competitively speaking, the question stands. Why is Sylveon just miles ahead of the others, leaping to the main lineup of teams while the others are just struggling to get off the bench, for team picks? What is it about Sylveon that separates it from the others? Well, let's investigate its stat total. Now, all of the stats for the Eeveelutions are the same. All of them, minus Eevee, sit at 525 stats, with an emphasis on HP, special defense, and special attack, with each of them sitting at 95, 110, and 130 respectively. When it comes to strength, Sylveon isn't the strongest. Glaceon and Espeon have a stronger special attack stat at 130. Health, it's pretty good, but Vaporeon beats it in that regard, swapping Sylveon's HP and special defense stats. Now, Sylveon is also far from the master of speed of the Eeveelutions. Leafeon and Jolteon actually have that title down, hands down. And as far as survivability holds, Umbreon holds that crown with its bulk and HP. Alright, so we've determined that it's not in regards to their stats. What about their moves? When it comes to the moves, all of the Eeveelutions share the exact same move pool. They all share the same move pool as Eevee. And the only difference is they each get various elemental types depending on what typing they are. Okay, so we've learned that they all are very similar to each other. They only have minor variations. They basically specialize in their typing and their elements. So, with only a little bit of wiggle room for a few moves that they all can share, why does Sylveon get so much attention and get the number 15 most used slot, while Vaporeon is stuck 60 spots below in the lower tier of picked Pokemon? Well, the reason why Sylveon is miles ahead of the others, just based on these reasons, is found because of its ability. While Q-Charm is not something many people use, if any of them, Sylveon is so far the only remaining Pokemon with access to the ability Pixelate. No other Pokemon outside of the Mega Pokemon Gardevoir and Altaria gain this ability, meaning this Pokemon already is paces ahead of the others. Pixelate, just so you know, if you can't read it from here, causes normal type attacking moves used by the Pokemon with the ability to become fairy type. And at the same time, they also gain an increase of power by 20%. On top of that, if the Pokemon is already a fairy type, it also gains a stab boost, increasing it further by 50%, turning a normal type move on Sylveon into a fairy type move with a base stat boost of 70% increase in power. As an example of how powerful Sylveon is, another Pokemon that changes the typing of a move to stab, Primarina with Liquid Voice, despite having a way stronger special attack stat, deals way less damage using the same move as Sylveon with Pixelate. With this power, Sylveon is by far the strongest of the Eeveelutions, using the power of love for its trainer to cause devastation that none of the other Eeveelutions can match. This is because it's the most recent Eeveelution. Despite arriving 3 generations ago in X and Y, Sylveon had the best ability of the 8 evolutions. On top of that, the other evolutions suffer from requiring too much setup before they can get going. In VGC battles, can end legit on turn 1 if you misread an opening or you choose poorly with your moves, and the slower playstyles of some of the other evolutions leaves them vulnerable. Vaporeon is a huge tank with acid armor and special defense investment, and using Rain Dance and Hydration makes it so Vaporeon can rest away any status or damage and then immediately wake up. But if you don't have a range setter, you're basically committing 3 turns and 3 move slots, bare minimum, to just get Vaporeon going. Jolteon and Flareon and Leafeon can sorta get away with this, as they can either start what they want to do turn 1 or 2, but Leafeon being in the sun exposes it to fire damage, which is something it doesn't want to deal with already, and Jolteon doesn't make good use of Quick Feet. And as far as Flareon is concerned, its slow speed leaves it much to be desired despite its bulk and attack power with Guts. Espeon doesn't really know what it wants to do outside of niche offensive roles, and Umbreon tends to be more there to punish the opponent's attack power or reduce their strength over time. Glaceon, Glaceon is having it rough this generation. Despite the buff to Ice types defense, getting a defense boost in the snow, it really is struggling this generation thanks to Goldango. Now, compare this to Sylveon, who can go Hyper Voice for massive damage bursts, and combine it with a Throat Spray to increase its special attack stat by 1 stage after it's already used the attack, and you have the recipe for a beast attacker without much effort needed. It has high offensive pressure, it's a quick strategy to take advantage of its ability and power, and you can fit it onto many teams with little to no effort. It's a perfect Pokemon for VGC and competitive Pokemon in general. So, the evolutions minus Sylveon from a competitive standpoint are outdated. And unless this changes, they always will be as time goes on. Sylveon will just outshine them. Is there any way they could change? Any way they could get something to help them? Well, actually they can. Simplest solution is by giving them new standard abilities. Now, while adjusting their stats might be one way, giving them these new abilities, especially standard abilities, can give them some potential viability in teams as alternates. One way to make the evolutions more viable is to make them viable alternatives to already existing strategies. Basically, each of the evolutions could get something like set up a different terrain or weather or other field effect. For example, Flareon could be an alternative drought setter to Torkoal currently, or Espeon could get access to setting up psychic terrain when it hits the field, and it can be an even faster Imprison user to counter Trick Room teams. Jolteon could be an alternative to Pincursion and set up electric terrain, and Leafeon could also be a new grassy terrain setter. Umbreon is a bit of an enigma. It really doesn't fit any of the roles since it's a dark type, but to counter Sylveon, it could gain a unique ability for its own, which amplifies its durability by reducing damage to dark type Pokemon next to it, including itself. Though that last one is up for debate. You can all leave your suggestions down below if you are so inclined. The point is, the evolutions all have potential, but when it comes to competitive, especially VGC, battles are too fast-paced and rely on a strong strategy that can be implemented quickly while damaging the opponent as much as possible. While long-term strategies might work in a single setting or as a surprise factor if the opponent doesn't know what's going on, in a doubles battle, it can end so quickly before you even realize it's already over. I'm not saying every evolution has to be as popular as Sylveon, but Sylveon shouldn't be the only one getting love and attention in competitive formats, especially VGC. But what do you think could be done for the evolutions to make them more used in competitive? Tell me in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that shenanigans if you are so inclined. I'll see you all next time. Take care of yourselves, everybody. Bye-bye!